So guys, what if Naruto was hot? Pervy Akeno and Rias Harem in DxD movie. Rias Gremory was irritated, lost and exhausted. There has to be a way to get me out of this. For the past 3 years, the heiress of the Gremory house had resided within the quaint and idyllic small town of Kuo, Japan. Here she pretended to be just an ordinary, albeit incredibly beautiful teenage girl. She went to school, did her homework and assignments, and completed her tests and exams without using any of her vast magical powers to aid her. It was fun. She enjoyed and treasured the life she currently lived, and yet she knew that it could not last. Rias Gremory was the heiress of an ancient house of devils, one of the 72 primordial pillars of the underworld. She had duties to her kind, and Rias knew that she could only run and stall so long before she would be forced back into the life of a pampered princess trapped within her gilded cage. It would not be long before her parents would call on her to fulfill her obligations, upon which she would marry him, and with that her cherished freedom would be gone. And that frightened her greatly. She was afraid of becoming a trophy wife. She was afraid of her fiancé, or rather she was afraid of what he would do to her and the members of her peerage if she did not find a way to break this accursed engagement. Rias sighed and ran a hand through her long crimson-red hair, enjoying the silky texture of the strands as they tickled the tips of her smooth fingers. Accursed engagement, just how could mother and father do this to me? She bit down hard on her lower lip and squeezed her eyes shut to stave off the moisture that built on the corners of her otherwise magnificent and vibrant eyes. The contract that was set up was difficult enough to swallow, but the fact that her parents were the ones to set it up hurt more than words could convey. Her parents, the illustrious Lord Zeodicus and Lady Venelana Gremory, were the two devils that Rias looked up to throughout her childhood, the two devils that she loved above all others, even above her Ani-sama, and yet they still did this to her. They knew all about her fiancé, they knew how he acted and how he treated her, they knew about his philandering around with every woman he met, and they knew that Rias was nothing but a trophy, a pair of tits, a supple ass and a nice pink pussy to him, and yet her parents never once spoke up about it. They never once reprimanded her fiancé for his actions, not even when that bastard groped or belittled her in front of other devils. She could not help the scoff that escaped her luscious lips, even as the first few salty pearls trickled down her ivory cheeks. Mother and father most likely won't give a fuck, even if Rias ripped my clothes off and raped me bloody. 1. Rias would have continued her dark and downtrodden train of thought, wallowing in the misery of being thrown to the wolves by her own family. But before she could, she felt herself being enveloped from behind in a warm and tender embrace. She felt herself being pulled back into a pair of large and soft breasts that now rested against her cheeks on both sides, and she felt the comforting weight of a chin resting softly against the crown of her head. A sweet and alluring sense of orange, jasmine, rose and vanilla invading her nose only confirmed what she already knew. Akeno-chan, Rias stuttered. In her grief and self-torment she had completely forgotten that she was not alone within her grand room. SHH, it's alright baby. 2. The soft and melodious voice of her queen tickled her ears before Rias felt a soft hand brush against her cheeks. First it brushed along her right cheek, then the left, cleaning away the wetness of her tears. It's alright, we're going to find a way to free you from that contract, and then we're going to stick it to that bastard. So don't worry that pretty little head of yours. But I didn't. Rias was cut off from her attempts to save face by a soft chuckle coming from behind. You don't need to pretend, Rias-chan. She felt Akeno lightly brush her lips against the crown of her head. I know what you were thinking about. After all, there aren't many things that can make the great Rias Gremory-sama cry, and I didn't see any camels around. Rias' lips quirked up at Akeno's small bit of ribbing before she allowed herself to melt into her best friend's embrace. Thank you, Akeno-chan. Here's nothing you have to thank me for. I'll always be here for you. Rias smiled warmly. Her earlier thoughts, while not forgotten, were soothed and pushed away for the time being. Now, want to talk about it? Rias sighed and shook her head. Not really, it's always the same anyways. I first thought about my engagement, then about my parents. And how they could hurt you so much. Akeno finished for her, making Rias nod her head before the beautiful Reed felt another kiss being placed against the top of her head. Oh baby, I'm so sorry, and I promise that we'll find a way to free you. I hope you are right, Rias said before whispering. For all of us. It wasn't a secret amongst the girls of her peerage that if Rias' marriage to Riser Phoenix came to pass, all of the girls sworn to her would most likely suffer greatly. Rias was quite sure that the best the girls of her peerage could look forward to would be to become members of Riser's harem. The worst, on the other hand, well, that was something Rias didn't even wish to think about. Rias suddenly squawked in surprise as she felt her left nipple being twisted between two fingers. Akeno. That's what you get for ignoring me and thinking about that again. Rias' cheeks puffed out in a pout at the sweet yet sadistic laugh of her queen. Yaramini, she huffed, though there was a slight smile on her ruby red lips. Hush, I know that you love it when I'm mean with you. Akeno purred into her ear, which caused Rias to break out into melodious laughter. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Guess y'all never know, my dear Akeno-chan. Rias purred right back, looking over her shoulder to meet Akeno's gorgeous violet eyes with a smoldering look in her own. The two girls held each other's lustful gazes as their faces inched ever closer towards each other until their glossy lips were just about to meet when Rias suddenly smirked, which became a smile, and finally, she let out another sweet laugh. Alright, you win Akeno-chan. Rias giggled while snuggling deeper into Akeno's soft hold. Doesn't feel like a win to me, Akeno pouted, and here I was looking forward to getting a kiss from my cute little butchu. Rias rolled her eyes in exasperation and lightly swatted Akeno's forearm, which was securely wrapped around her slim waist. Oh, stop it you. Rias and Akeno's friendship ran deep. They've been inseparable since their childhood days. Growing up, the two childhood friends would often share the same bed, and sometimes even the same shower and bath. Neither of them did mind their close kinship, and to this day, they would occasionally have their own personal slumber party. They would spend the night chatting about anything that came to mind. It was an escape from the troubles of the real world for both of them. Rias did not need to keep up her noble and dignified personality, and Akeno didn't need to act like the fabled One-Sama of Kuo Academy. When it was just them, they could drop all the pretense and be themselves. Feeling better now? Akeno asked lightly while still holding her best friend within a tight embrace. Rias nodded, I do. Good, then let's grab a quick shower. We're already late to school as is, and I've heard that we'll be getting a new student today, Akeno said before releasing Rias from her hold. Oh really? The beautiful Ritit asked. Akeno nodded her head, at least that's what Tsubaki-chan told me the other day. Well then let's go, I'm curious to find out who this new student might be. The Ritit jumped up from the couch and quickly darted into the bathroom that was located right within her massive bedroom, which in itself housed a small family, leaving behind a giggling Akeno Himejima. You're such a child Rias. Bite me. Gladly. The black-haired bombshell smirked and followed her best friend into the bathroom. No wait Akeno-chan. It was a joke. Oh my god this is going to be so freaking boring. The young man stood at the gates of Kuo Academy, with his head hung low, and an aura of depression and annoyance about himself, with comedic rain cloud and all. He was handsome which drew him many glances from the female student body, not that the young man noticed. He was still too busy cursing the fates for having to attend an academy again. And yet even as he sulked away at his own misfortune, many members of the fairer sex could not keep the heat from rising to their cheeks as they beheld his form. He was rather tall for starters, standing a fair bit above the Japanese average, and the way the early morning sun reflected off his bright yellow blonde hair made it appear as if he had a glowing aura of gold surrounding his form. That and many of the female students simply found his despondent and sulky attitude to be quite cute, even more so after some of them heard his lowly muttered words of how school was evil and how the world hated him for forcing him to be here. Uzumaki-san, were you listening to me? The light and soft voice of a girl ripped the sulking teen from his depression, and his bright blue eyes focused on the girl that stood before him. The girl whom he may or may not have ignored for the past 10 minutes or so, but she truly didn't need to know now, did she? Of course I was listening. He grinned at the girl while sheepishly rubbing the back of his head. What was your name again? The cute white-haired girl gave him a deadpan look before her shoulders slumped and she let out a deep sigh, which kinda made him feel bad about ignoring her. My name is Momo Hanakai, I'm a second-year student and a member of the Kuo Academy Student Council. I've been sent to receive you and to formally welcome. Well, if anything the students at this school seem to be nice enough, the blonde thought absent-mindedly, again completely ignoring the girl in front of him, and I would be lying if I'd claimed that the girls that I've seen so far weren't utterly drop-dead gorgeous. As the last thought crossed his mind his deep blue eyes took in the form of the girl standing in front of him. She was beautiful. Rich white hair that cascaded down her back and framed the sides of her pretty face. She had creamy white skin that looked to be utterly smooth and without a single visible blemish, and the school uniform that she wore hugged her womanly curves in all the right places, leaving little to nothing to the imagination. Uzumaki-san. The young man was startled when the cute girl Momo here called shouted his name while snapping her fingers in front of his face. Why yes. Stop ignoring me. The girl cried with puffed out cheeks and an annoyed look on her beautiful face. But I didn't. Then what I say? Huh? That your name is Momo Hanakai, that you are a member of the Kuo Academy Student Council, and that you were sent here to officially welcome me to the academy and to give me a tour of the academy grounds. Furthermore, you said that you would be open to any questions I may have about the academy, its rules and regulations, and that you'd lead me to the headmaster's secretary where I will be given my schedule. His lips quirked up in a small smirk as he took in the look of surprise on Momo's face. Nothing like some good-natured fun to brighten up an otherwise bad day. Oh I apologize for accusing you of ignoring me Uzumaki-san. Momo stumbled over her words with a flustered expression on her pretty face. None of that Momo-san, I should apologize for making you feel as if I'd ignored you. He smiled brightly at her, inwardly cheering a bit when he noticed a small dusting of pink on Momo's cheeks. Oh, and please call me Naruto, I'm truly not fond of formalities. Oh okay then Naruto-san, the cute girl stuttered out timidly before she cleared her throat and once more adopted a more serious persona. Now then, if you would follow me, we should begin with your tour around the campus. Momo was just about to turn around and begin her stride when Naruto spoke up. Yeah, about that, I don't think that I will be needing that tour. What? But the campus is large and it's easy for new students to get lost here, Momo claimed, while stopping mid-step to turn and face her charge for the day. But the fun of getting to see new places is exploring, isn't it? Naruto gave Momo another grin, showing his pearly whites to the world before he vaguely gestured at the large academy building. Just give me the directions to the headmaster's office and I'll find my own way around. But what if you get lost and don't make it to class on time? Momo was partly worried that the new student would get into trouble on his first day, but more than that she was worried that she would get in trouble with Kachin for allowing Naruto to get into trouble on her watch. She would rather not have her behind spanked until it was the color of a ripe cherry again. Don't worry about it, Momo-san, if I get into trouble then I'm going to own up to it, and if you're worried about getting into trouble yourself, then just tell whoever it is you answer to that I insisted on exploring the campus on my own. Momo frowned at the admittedly handsome young man before she let out another sigh. If you are sure. I am, he nodded. Okay then, just try to get to your class on time. If I recall correctly then you are in class 3A, it's on the 3rd floor. Naruto nodded, I'll remember it, thanks for the warm reception Momo-chan. But that Naruto turned towards the academy and walked away from the blushing girl, waving over his shoulder as he did. Though as he was a few paces away from the second-year girl he heard her call out to him. Welcome to Kuo Academy, Naruto-kun. He smirked and continued his slow walk towards the main academy building. Yeah, maybe going to school won't be all that bad after all. 1. Lord and Lady Gremory strike me as being quite nice and lovely in canon, but at the same time I won't exactly call them good parents either. From what I know of the DxD canon, Venelana Gremory is a strict woman that seems to expect Rias to do her duty without complaint, and Zeodicus Gremory seems to be a laid-back and quite careless man overall. He also has a harem, so I doubt that he holds women and their feelings and desires in high regard. And both of them did know exactly what kind of man Riser Phoenix was, and yet neither of them seemed to say or do anything about Riser's behavior, to a point where one truly has to speculate what it would have taken for them to take action and put their foot down for good. And taking all that into account, I think that it is plausible for Rias to feel abandoned by her own parents, too. This paragraph and the ones following are not meant to be taken as romantic or sexual, it's meant to show a friend consoling and coddling the other, nothing more. Rias Gremory pinched the bridge of her nose in irritation, mostly because their homeroom teacher was late later than she had arrived and that meant that she was sitting in class, doing nothing while her peerage's familiars, no doubt worked to increase the amount of paperwork that would wait for her in the Orc Club room. Paperwork which she would have to deal with sooner or later, no matter how much she wanted to put it off in favor of searching for a new member to join her beloved peerage. But no, she needed to keep up on doing her duties, no matter how tedious they might be. But it was just so boring and monotonous she had no idea how Sona managed to deal with her workload with such effortless swiftness. At that moment, her ears picked up on a commotion from outside the doors. The chatter inside the class died down as students looked up to see the teacher strolling in. He was a short and stout man, with graying brown hair and thin wireframe glasses, sitting on the bridge of his crooked nose. His name was Mr. Els, an Englishman if she wasn't mistaken, but beyond that, he was without a doubt the most unassuming teacher that she'd ever seen. However, walking next to Mr. Els was a young man that could be called the polar opposite of the plain-looking teacher. Rias could feel her cheeks heating up as Mr. Els introduced the young man to the class. Good morning everyone. We have a new transfer student today and I'm counting on all of you to make him feel right at home here at Kuo. Her face grew hotter still as she beheld the young man's form. He was tall, taller than her by several inches if she had to guess, with sun-kissed skin and golden blonde hair that stood out in every which way, as if nothing stood a chance of taming the unruly mop. The boy was dressed in the Kuo Academy uniform with a light orange shirt underneath a black jacket. His clothes were wrinkly and disheveled, and Rias got the feeling that the boy didn't much care for the state of his uniform. The young man, whose mischievous blue eyes were shining out from underneath strands of gold that covered his forehead, bowed to the class. Hello everyone, my name is Uzumaki Naruto, I hope that we'll get along, and maybe even become friends in the future, Tabeo. His voice was rich to her ears, buttery and purring like nothing she had ever heard before. It sent a shudder down her spine, one that seemed to resonate through her body, leaving a trail of gooseflesh on her skin. And Tabeo? A verbal tick. It was oddly charming if a bit immature. Rias noted that he had 3 blemishes on each cheek, almost appearing to be whiskers. It lent him a cute yet roguish appearance, which was already reinforced by his playful bow and strange verbal tick. All around the class Rias could hear whispers burst like overflowing balloons, girls speaking with hushed voices, chatting and murmuring over the new student. Maybe it was her imagination playing tricks on her, but she felt the room heat up quite a bit, as though she was urged to fan herself, and glancing around it became obvious that she was far from the only girl to feel this way. She watched how the boy straightened himself before turning to face the teacher, and once more her ears were assaulted by the seductive purr of Naruto's baritone. Where would you like me to sit, sensei? The curious boy asked with a playful little smile stretching his lips, giving Rias a brief glaze at his slightly protruding canines, sticking out from otherwise perfect and pearl-white teeth. Yakai. Rias glanced around as she heard half the class sigh dreamily. She didn't know what to make of it, but seeing every girl stare at the boy with dreamy, star-struck eyes irked her. But she could not blame her fellow female students either, because one thing was for sure, Kiba was going to have to fight for his title now. Pretty boy number 2 had officially arrived, and boy was he a fine piece of eye candy. Rias could say with full confidence that Naruto Uzumaki was the best-looking boy she had seen this side of the underworld. Her mind tried to find any man she knew that struck her chords as this one did, but none came to mind. Rias turned to look over her shoulder at her queen and saw that Akeno too was smiling at Naruto, deep violet eyes moving up and down, roaming over the boy's body and without a doubt, disrobing him with her eyes. Akeno, really? You too? The crimson-haired beauty could feel her eyebrow twitch. She couldn't blame Akeno for ogling the boy when she had done nothing but the same since he entered the classroom, but again it didn't sit right with her. Not at all. Was she feeling possessive over a boy she didn't know? No, that couldn't be it, right? Well, Uzumaki-san, you can take the free seat over there, next to Himejima-san, Mr. L said, pointing at the seat next to her best friend. Naruto's gaze turned to the queen of Rias' peerage, who had raised her hand to make herself noticed by the new student. And there it was again, that twinge of irritation forming in the pit of her stomach as she watched Naruto look at her best friend with those gorgeous blue eyes of his. Undressing her with his eyes, I just know it. Rias blinked, where did that come from? Why would she care if the new kid ogled her best friend? She knew for a fact that Akeno wouldn't mind being stared at, so where was this sudden irritation coming from? I'm just protective of Akeno-chan, yes that's it, and is Akeno's best friend I'm allowed to feel offended on her part? She nodded decisively, happy with her victory over her mind. Rias finally pulled her eyes away from the new student after watching him walk towards Akeno, but not before feeling her body shudder one last time as Naruto passed her and her nose caught a whiff of his scent. The smell of pines, dried leaves, and fresh dewy grass followed his wake. Such a unique and manly scent made her feel lightheaded. What's wrong with me? She pinched the bridge of her nose and lightly shook her head to rid herself of whatever spell she had fallen prey to. Now then, I believe that it's time to get this day started, Mr. L said as he walked towards the blackboard. Class, please open your Algebra 2 textbook, page 76. And as Rias decided to put her focus back on her studies, she was completely unaware of the pair of blue eyes that studied her from behind. Naruto watched the girl with the crimson hair out of the corner of his eye. She was beautiful. She had a voluptuous body with a perfect hergless figure and a large bust. Admittedly, he found it hard not to stare at the breasts hidden beneath a uniform that hugged her figure oh so nicely, but it was her hair that first drew his eyes. So rich and vibrant as it spilled down her back, adorning the ivory skin of her face and complementing those turquoise eyes that shone out from beneath a messy fringe of crimson silk that covered her forehead and crossed down her cute button nose. Even as he looked at the back of the girl's head, Naruto found it hard to believe that such beauty could be real. Throughout his life, he saw many gorgeous women, but this one here stood leagues above them all. When his eyes first fell on her as he entered the classroom, he felt his throat turn dry, his heartbeat quicken, and his palms run wet and sweaty. From that moment on it was a battle to not look at that beautiful girl, for he feared that if he had allowed himself to stare, he would still be standing there in front of the class, frozen like a statue, and a blush to end all blushes on his face. No thanks. He'd rather not make an idiot out of himself just yet. He knew from past experiences that being the class clown was not exactly a fun time. No, that was a lie. He remembered having a blast as he raised hell throughout the Shinobi Academy, and then being chased by Iruka and running away from the angry office ninja that got stuck working at the academy as bureaucrats and teachers. Those were fun times. He smiled and looked down at his book, already laying open on the table before him, and as soon as his eyes roamed over the first page his smile gradually began to fall. What was this? Was this book written in moon speak? Because Naruto sure as hell didn't understand anything that was written within. The more he read the more his confusion grew. This book was about math. He hated math. How me coming to this school might have been a mistake. Fuck my life. Lunch break. The bell finally rang, an uncomfortable blaring sound, but to Naruto's ears, it was like the calling of angels, a sweet and tender melody of freedom. Finally, that boring, monotonous torture was over. For a while there he feared that it would never end. Naruto lifted his head from his desk and stretched out his limbs with a loud yawn, sighing blissfully as his back popped and cracked in so very satisfying ways, before turning to watch his fellow students swarm out the class doors in a hurry. He smiled and waved at a group of girls who were looking in his direction. The girls he noted all flushed and fidgeted indecisively as if they weren't sure if they should approach him or not, but ultimately, they only sent him a flirtatious wink before scurrying out the class. So this is what it feels like to be Sasuke? I honestly could get used to this. He rolled his shoulders and began to clean up his table. Oh my, looks like someone's popular yufufufu. Naruto looked aside to see his seatmate standing next to his desk, looking down on him with a gentle smile adorning her beautiful face. She too was quite the gorgeous girl, but that was hardly saying something anymore. After only half a day at Kuo High, Naruto knew that he needed a different word to describe some of the girls had seen so far. Beautiful just didn't do them justice. As for this one standing before him, she was something alright. The girl was about the average height for her age, with rich, glossy, and long black hair that she tangled into a ponytail with a large burnt orange ribbon, a choice in color Naruto most certainly could appreciate. She had a marvelously curvaceous figure, perfect mile-long legs, wide hips, and a thin waist that led up to one of the largest pairs of boobs that Naruto had ever seen. Seriously, her boobs had two at least matched Tsunade's. And the girl was still growing as well. I don't know what you mean. Ara, where are my manners? Akeno Himejima, it's a pleasure to meet you, Uzumaki-kun. The beauty inclined her head towards him, a gesture that he was more than happy to return, and I think you know exactly what I meant, don't you? Yufufufu. The pleasure is mine, Himejima-chan, and just Naruto will do, I'm not one for formalities. He smiled at her before he began to collect a few books strewn about on his table and stored them away in his backpack, upon which he too rose from his seat. And about those girls, he glanced down at the beautiful girl who now had to crane her head up to look at his face. Guess they're curious about me cause I'm new and stuff, give it a few days, and I'm sure they'll settle down. Somehow I doubt that. A spark traveled down Naruto's spine as Akeno's haunting violet eyes roamed his body. You're certainly different. Naruto cocked an eyebrow at the girl. Okay. I'm going to take that as a compliment. You should. Akeno smiled, no smirked up at him after her pretty eyes finished roaming his body. It was meant to be one, but anyway, did you enjoy your first day so far? Kind of. The academy is nice and all, but the classes so far were quite, well, boring. Yes. The blonde's head bobbed quickly. I thought the sensei would never stop talking. The girl hid a giggle behind a dainty hand. Yes, I think everyone feels the same about Mr. L's classes. He is boring but reliable, and he knows what he is talking about. You'd do well to pay attention to what he has to say. Naruto grimaced but nodded anyway. I guess you're right, can't hurt to give it a try. No need to sound so enthusiastic about it. Akeno shook her head with a playful sigh, escaping through her full plump lips. I guess you're still just a typical boy. Hey. That's uncalled for. He cried in false outrage, which rewarded him with another laugh that was swallowed by the back of Akeno's hand, and it'll have you know that I'm nothing like the guys here, Dadabeo. Akeno crossed her arms underneath her sizable bust and playfully sized him up, isn't that what every boy tells himself? The girl's violet eyes then flicked aside, prompting Naruto's gaze to follow, and they both saw the red-haired girl began to lift herself from her seat. I guess it's time for me to be off then. Huh? Naruto's eyes fell on the girl before him again. You were waiting for her then? Akeno nodded. I did, we always spend our breaks together. I see, he smiled at the girl. Well then don't let me stop you. Thanks. Akeno smoothed out her skirt before she lifted her purse from her table. It was nice meeting you, Uzumaki-kun. She winked at him before she began to head towards the crimson-haired girl. Likewise, and I told you that just Naruto was fine. Naruto called after the girl but received no reply. He threaded a hand through his hair and watched as Akeno met the other girl at her table before he grabbed his small backpack and made to exit the class himself, his thoughts clinging to the conversation he shared with the black-haired girl. Despite the prime and proper way the girl held herself, she struck him to be quite playful. A shame that she didn't have time to talk a while longer, but well, there always was tomorrow. For now, it was time to enjoy his break before it was too late and the next period began, something he wasn't looking forward to at all. So, you talked to him? What did he say? Rias rounded on Akeno the moment they appeared within the Orc Club room. The Occult Research Club was originally abandoned due to a lack of both members and funding, but upon arriving at the school herself, Rias saw an opportunity that could allow her peerage to function in secrecy, even during daytime, by securing the property the old school building stood on. It was a hassle and a half to officially gain all the rights for the building and the small forest outside, but one well worth it in the end, and there was nothing that she wouldn't do for her peerage. Who are we talking about here? Akeno questioned, looking at the unusually bubbly form of her king. The new guy, of course. Rias took a hold of Akeno's arm and pulled her towards one of the many Victorian-styled couches that lined the walls of her clubroom. Now what did he say? Did you notice anything odd about him? Did you get a feel for his energy? Anything? Hey, calm down girl, the ponytailed senior squinted at Rias. What's this all about? Why are you so curious about Uzumaki-kun? Rias flushed, and her fingers fiddled with a strand of her crimson hair. It's nothing, I just noticed that his teeth looked a lot like those of a canine, too long and sharp to belong to a human, so I was curious if he might be a yakai, that's all. Yoo-hoo, Akeno scrutinized the girl sitting next to her, taking note of the little dusting of pink on Rias' cheeks and the way her fingers played with strands of her crimson hair. What's gotten into my butchu to make her so cutesy? Acting all flushed and embarrassed, Akeno wondered, but decided to give the question some thought before responding. No, there was nothing that struck me as odd or out of the ordinary, but we only shared a few words. Really? Ria's face fell, nothing at all. What's with her? Akeno's brow furrowed. As I said, we only shared a few words, and he didn't decide to give me a short version of his life story. Ria's shoulders fell and she sank back into the sofa they sat on. I see, I guess I shouldn't have gotten my hopes up. If you were so curious about Uzumaki-kun, then why didn't you just talk with him? Now that I think about it, you spent a long time just sitting at your desk today. Akeno too leaned back into the couch and crossed her legs. Rias rubbed her thighs. I wanted to go and introduce myself as well, but I don't know, I just got nervous. Akeno looked at her best friend, and much to her shock and surprise, Ria's face flushed red. Don't tell me, oh my, could it be that you're crushing on the new guy? No. Rias cried out with a burning face, I don't have a crush on anyone. Really? Then why is your face so red? Akeno pointed at the blushing Rias with a sparkle in her violet eyes. Oh my, you've got a crush, this is so adorable. Akeno-chan. Rias yelped as the buxom senior practically knocked her over with an unexpected bear hug. What are you doing? Hugging you, of course. Akeno giggled cutely per Ria's gasp as the former pushed them both until they lay spread eagle on the length of the couch. My cute little Rias-chan has her first crush on a boy, this is great. But I don't. Rias wiggled beneath her busty best friend, trying to push against the heavier black-haired girl. Now get off. Oh my, just think about what your parents would say. Akeno continued, laughing and giggling and completely ignoring the struggling girl she held trapped beneath her. The great Rias Gremory is crushing on a human boy. Akeno-chan, stop it please. Rias whined with a face so red that it seemed to blend in with her hair, making her head look like a tomato with wide eyes. Akeno pushed herself up, using her king's shoulders until she sat on Ria's abdomen, straddling the girl. Well, if anything, I've got to admit that your taste in men hasn't changed. Uzumaki-kun is certainly easy on the eyes. Rias crossed her arms and pouted. I told you, Akeno-chan, I'm not crushing on him or anyone for that matter. But you were blushing. Akeno shuffled back until her back rested against Rias' knees, truly using the girl beneath her as a recliner. I never saw you blush because of a boy, well, real boy that is. There was that one time I caught you masturbating. Akeno Himejima. The crimson-haired girl cried and covered Akeno's mouth with both of her hands. You promised to never talk about that again. The two high school seniors looked at each other, Rias with a pouty blush on her face, and Akeno with Ria's hands covering her mouth. There was silence until both broke out into fits of girlish giggling which became roaring laughter. The two childhood friends laughed until tears came to their eyes, and their breathing turned into labored pants. You're incorrigible, Akeno-chan, Rias panted out and reached up to wipe a stray tear from the corner of her eye. And you're far too easy to tease, Rias. Akeno blew out her cheeks before allowing herself to fall forward. Rias felt her breath leave her in a sharp exhale as the weight of her best friend dropped onto her heaving chest, but she didn't mind. The two girls lay there in each other's arms, their breathing hard and the occasional giggle and laugh escaping their lips. Uncaring of the scene, they would strike to anyone that was to observe them at the moment. This was rather unfortunate as the doors of the clubroom opened and a very handsome young man came walking into the room. The moment the boy's bluish-gray eyes fell onto the two women lying on the couch, both breathing hard with their bodies entwined in a lover's embrace, he blinked once, twice and then a third time before he spun around on the spot and left the clubroom as quickly as he had entered. Please ignore my interruption, don't let me stop you from enjoying your moment. Rias and Akeno heard the echo of Kibayudo's voice coming from the hallway outside. Rias blinked, her face a mask of serenity. Akeno-chan. Yes. Akeno too looked as if nothing ever happened. Did we just get caught doing something suggestively sexual again? Yes, we did. Huh. Yup. Akeno turned her head to look Rias in the eyes. If we keep getting caught in positions like this, I won't be surprised if your parents would take you for a lesbian. Again, Rias blinked up at Akeno with big and round eyes. Do you think that being gay would get me out of my contract with Riser? Akeno opened her mouth as if to answer, but quickly snapped it shut again, and a look of contemplation overtook her features. She squinted and thought, maybe. Ria's face brightened, a maybe's good, right? Akeno reached down to tuck a strand of hair behind Rias' ear. Maybe, but it also may make Riser even more determined to marry you. But besides that, do you really want to join the Rainbow Nation now that you have found a boyfriend? The crimson-haired girl's face lit up in an equally crimson flush. How many times do I have to tell you, I don't have a crush on anyone? Akeno only laughed melodiously, which didn't please her king, not one bit. As such, the two beauties spent the rest of their lunch break squabbling, teasing, and laughing without a care in the world. Naruto sighed pleasantly as he rested his back against a large oak tree that stood at the edge of the courtyard behind Kuo High's main academic building. After finishing his lunch, some fast food he bought on his way to school, he just wanted to relax for a few moments before classes would resume. So far Naruto didn't know what he should think of his first day at school. He had enjoyed it more than he thought that he would, but beyond that, he could not help to question his choice of enrolling in the academy. Maybe it was his guilt acting up, or maybe it was something else entirely, but he felt that he wasn't ready to move on. He exhaled a long suffering breath. Was it right for him to move on after everything that happened? For months now he hid from the world, all the while hoping and praying that someone would come to get him. He hoped that his friends would find some way to get him back home, but nothing happened. No one came for him. For the first time in a long while, Naruto was in a position where his might and chakra were not enough, or if it was enough then he knew not where to start. He knew far too little about the makeup of the universe, and he had no idea for how interdimensional travel was possible. Oh, he was aware that there were beings out there that had such power at their command, but he was not one of them. He possessed no Sharingan, no Rinnegan, and most certainly no Rin Sharingan, and his knowledge about Fuinjutsu was lacking. He could make a storage scroll, but that was about it. He was far away from knowing how to create seals that could function on an interdimensional level, and if he didn't just so happen to stumble upon a seal master that was willing to teach him, Naruto feared that that would never change. "Dear me, could you please not?" Naruto had no outward reaction to the booming and ungodly voice that suddenly resonated through his mind with the force of a thunderclap. He just smiled. "Good morning, sleeping princess." Nothing good about it. Kurama, the nine-tailed demon fox, the bane of Konoha, and one of the closest friends Naruto ever had, grumbled in pure annoyance. "First thing I hear after waking up from a month-long nap, and it just had to be your annoying and despondent thoughts." "Oh, screw you too," Naruto huffed. "Besides, I've been getting better with that, and you know it." "True enough I suppose." Kurama yawned loudly before looking at the world through Naruto's eyes. "Naruto." "Yes. Why are we in a human school? And why are you wearing a school uniform?" "Well, didn't you say that you wanted me to get my ass into gear and do something with my life?" "I think you said something along the lines of." Naruto mentally cleared his throat. "Naruto, stop sulking and get your ass into gear or I swear that I will make your every day a living hell on earth." After that I remember you going into a fit of evil cackling, while simultaneously throwing insult after insult at me. Then, you were so tuckered out that you went on a month-long nap. If a giant monster fox could blush in embarrassment, then Kurama would be doing that right now. Well, that might be true, but I was thinking about something like using your skills to become a mercenary or a thief or hell even an assassin. Yay save it. I know killing people for money isn't exactly you, but we cold switched places. Then I cold done the killing while you cold spent the money but not school. I remember that you hated school. So why are we in school? The one fucking place that's sure to be even more boring than your smelly and cramped apartment. Well, I thought that it would be smart to join a school, you know. This way I could meet some new people, maybe make some friends while also learning. Bullshit. Naruto jumped at Kurama's loud bellow, so startled was he that even his physical body jumped nearly a foot into the air. Blah. Bullshit again. Naruto was cut off by Kurama, quieter this time as Kurama adapted a matter-of-fact tone. "There is no way at all, that you would ever join a school to learn something. No way. I don't believe it. What's that supposed to mean, you giant furry asshole? I can study." Bullshit. The day you sit down with a book in hand to study something that isn't related to ninjutsu is the day I'm going to transform into a hot and bothered anime fox girl with a deep craving for your dick. Naruto crossed his arms and pouted. "You're an asshole to Bayo." There's no denying the obvious, but I'm also right, Kurama snorted within his mind. "Now, truth, give it to me, pronto. You know you actually would make for a good anime waifu. You have that bossy son personality down to a T. Oh, go and fuck a fucking duck, you fucking schmuck." Naruto chuckled warmly, quickly being joined by his partner. It was good to be able to talk with that grouchy old kitsune again even if he sometimes wanted to strangle Kurama. "But Naruto, why are we here?" Kurama asked, and Naruto knew that his tenant was serious right now. "Just look yourself," the blonde stated before synchronizing his mind with that of Kurama's, showing the Biju all that transpired over the last month. Processing a month's worth of memories took even Kurama a few moments to do, and once it was done Naruto waited and allowed the ancient Biju to mull over what he had learned. "Interesting. Yup, very curious indeed." Naruto nodded in agreement. "Do you think this boss will be able to help you get back home?" Naruto raked a hand through his golden blonde hair. "Honestly, no, I don't think so. I believe that I'm being played here right and proper, and I know that those people, whoever they are, know far more about us than we know about them, which is never a good thing. And finally, I was contracted by a shady group of people to play pretend at a high school. If that doesn't cause both your morally and ethnically wrong bells to ring, then I don't know what will." "Quite the situation you've gotten yourself into here," he heard Kurama hum from within him, "but the question remains, if you think that they're fooling you, then why are you here?" Naruto leaned his head back against the rough bark of the oak tree and allowed his gaze to wander heavenward. "Because those guys might be telling the truth. Their leader might truly be able to get us back to the elemental nations, and if not, then Kurama chuckled evilly within Naruto's mind, if not then we'll be able to give those idiots a one-way ticket straight to hell. Exactly, Naruto's azure blue eyes flashed red for a moment before they shifted back to their original color, but until those guys tell me what the heck I'm supposed to do, I'm going to have to play the part of being a normal student. Oh, the horror. I know right. It's terrible. Naruto, that was sarcasm. Oh really? What's that taste like? I see what you did there. Once more man and beast shared some laughs, but it was interrupted all too soon by the ringing of school's bells, announcing the end of Naruto's freedom. Well, that's my cue, I'm going to take another nap, wake me up when something interesting happens. Wait, Kurama. Are you sure that you don't want to switch places with me? Come on, I'm sure you want to stretch your legs for a bit, right? Naruto gave Kurama the best iteration of mental puppy dog eyes that he could, pretty please. Sure. Wait, really? Yeah, why not? Kurama agreed readily, I'm sure that no one will notice that the new kid suddenly has deep red eyes, 3-inch-long canines, and claws for fingernails, it'll fit right in with this bunch of meat bags. Naruto pouted at nothing, no need to rub it in. If you don't want me to rub it in then stop asking stupid questions, now get your ass back to the class young man. A large tick mark pulsed away on Naruto's temple, you're enjoying this, aren't you? BFF, no not at all, who do you take me for? Now get, time's a-wasting. Now Naruto might have believed Kurama were it not for the fact that the bastard of a fox was roaring in laughter. Such an insensitive bastard mocking Naruto and the horrors he would soon experience. Fuck you Kurama. Fuck you. Naruto smiled brightly, and it's good to have you back buddy. Hey, it's good to be back kid. Naruto rested his chin against his palm as he sat at his table. The teacher wasn't here yet, so the class was rowdy as students mingled with each other and chatted about this, that, and everything else. Even so, Naruto had no desire to join them, after all the students were talking about things that Naruto knew far too little about. Though as he allowed his eyes to wander through the crowded class, he noted that the pretty crimson-haired girl wasn't here either, neither was her friend Akeno. They probably have a different schedule than I that was as good a guess as any other. Hey, Chaiho, did you hear? Naruto picked up on a conversation happening between two boys that sat a few rows in front of him, and with nothing better to do Naruto decided to listen in. Hear about what, Shin? The first boy, Chaiho asked. The perverted trio got caught peeping again, Shin said with a chuckle following his statement. Perverted trio? Really? Naruto wondered about that before shuddering as an image of 3 Jiraiya's appeared before his mind's eye. No, just no. Honestly, those 3 are hopeless, Chaiho facepalmed, whether it was from embarrassment or something else Naruto didn't know. I know what you mean man, but can you blame them? That's not, still they better stop with their peeping, Chaiho muttered lowly enough that Naruto just barely managed to catch his words. You're only saying that because Kara's going to enter Kuo Academy next year. Chaiho crossed his arms and huffed, not if I have anything to say about it, I'll make sure that my sister isn't coming anywhere close to this place as long as Haidu and his fat buddies are around. Aren't you a bit overly dramatic here? Am I? Chaiho shot back, then tell me, genius, what would you do if you were in my position? Huh? Tell me. Well, there's always Akeno Academy across town, that's what I thought. Naruto shook his head at the interaction between the two boys with a small smile playing on his lips. Must be nice to only have such mundane concerns. He could hardly recall the feeling. Even now his life seemed to be unnecessarily convoluted, but he supposed that he signed up for it the moment he chose to become a shinobi. Naruto perked up when he saw the doors to the classroom open before a tall and beautiful woman came walking into the room. The students all scurried onto their seats as the woman's heels clicked against the floor, and she came to a stop in front of the blackboard. What's with all these women? Is this school some magnet for supermodels? Instead of flushing or gawking at the woman's gorgeous appearance, Naruto just shook his head in disbelief. Truly, this school was every pervert's paradise. And the woman that calmly stood before the entire class just served to reinforce that fact even further. Good lord, she could give both Momo and Akeno a run for their money. She used confidence as she stood there, staring at all the students with an icy and strict expression on her beautiful face. Her light gray hair was pulled into a slightly slanted ponytail, and several loose strands of her hair covered much of her left eye in a peekaboo. She had silvery gray eyes which were currently set into a hard stare and a cute mole on her left cheek, right underneath her lower lashes. The woman, for she appeared to be in her mid-30s, had a nice and curvaceous figure. She had long legs, very wide and thick hips, a thin waist, and modest breasts, all of which were covered by a fitting business suit with a skirt that was dreadfully short, leaving nothing of her long legs to the imagination. After holding her stare for another moment longer, the woman turned on the spot and wrote her name in chalk onto the blackboard before once more turning to face the class. No, not the class. Naruto couldn't help but gulp as the woman's eyes found his own, her stare unflinching and hard as steel. Starting today I'll be your instructor for Japanese history. The woman's tone was soft and feminine, but left an icy feeling in its wake. My name is Chinsoi. Damn, she sure is gorgeous, Naruto thought absent-mindedly as he observed some of his classmates whisper about the woman, which did not last long. Quite. The beautiful teacher slammed her fist onto the blackboard behind her, which caused many of the students in the class to nearly jump out of their seats in shock and left even the blonde shinobi quite startled. Those of you who've studied under me should know this already, but I don't believe that any students deserve to enjoy their basic human rights. Naruto blanched at that. Say what now? So, for the sake of our new student here I will say this, I will use every means necessary to make you succeed as students. The woman stalked back and forth in front of the class looking like a predator on the prowl, one hand on her hip while the other was wrapped tightly around a pointer. Concentrate on every single word I say and don't even let me hear you breathe, understood? Every single student, Naruto included, nodded their heads rapidly. Anyone who doesn't do as I say, she glared quite darkly, mighty ad, and let her eyes wander over every single student in attendance, will not be able to survive my class, so brace yourselves. What the fuck, Naruto breathed out before leaning over to another student sitting in his row. Is this normal? Naruto whispered to the girl who he sadly had not had the chance to meet before. Huh? The girl, cute lithe thing, looked at Naruto in confusion before her light blue eyes lit up in recognition. Oh, right, you're the new guy, so I shouldn't be surprised that you don't know about her, but to answer your question, yes, that's quite normal. The girl glanced at the teacher standing at the front before leaning closer towards him. Chien-sensei is extremely strict and known throughout the academy for her harsh treatment of students. She grills students for the smallest of mistakes and is known for dishing out corporal punishment. That right there, Uzumaki-san is Ms. Chien-soi, Kuo Academy's tyrant teacher. But the tyrant teacher, what did I get myself into now? Honestly kid, I have no idea, but I'm enjoying this greatly right now. Bahahaha. Naruto's head met his desk with a dull thud and he let out a low groan of annoyance, but of course, he should suspected this already, shouldn't he? It was just his luck that the school he attended just so happened to have a drill sergeant disguised as a hot teacher. I really fuck my life. Now then class, you better pay attention and don't you even think about slouching or sleeping during my class. Naruto felt like crying right about now. I can't even sleep through this. Open your history textbook, page 15, now. You know Naruto, I take it back, I don't think that this school's going to bore me anytime soon. This shit is better than wrestling. Now do something to make the woman angry, I wanna see what she does. Ami-sama, why? Uzumaki, pay attention. Yes, mom. Orc, the beautiful crimson-haired heiress of the Gremory family, was sitting at her large mahogany office table, enjoying her free period. And by enjoying she meant going over the paperwork that had gathered over the school day. It was boring and thankless work, but it was a part of being both a high-class devil and the president of a club. Sometimes her workload seemed unending, therefore she was glad that she had this free period. That and it allowed her to escape the clutches of the history teacher. That woman, Chien-soi, she was scary. Akeno was a sadist with some masochistic tendencies, and even she went out of her way to avoid that woman. I hope Naruto-kun is doing well, Rias blinked, her hand which held a ballpoint pen stopped mid-brush, and there it is again, why wouldn't you leave my mind? She lightly shook her head and placed her focus back on the paper she was in the process of filling out, but it was no use, even as her hand brushed the pen over paper, filling out line after line as if on autopilot, her thoughts revolved around the new student. It was worse now that she was alone, with nothing here to distract her. What's wrong with me? She wondered, could it be a crush? But I don't even know him. But did it matter if she knew the boy or not? There were always those stories about love on first sight, the kind of kitschy stories every girl dreamt about but never expected to happen to them, and Rias was no different in that. Oh, she enjoyed those stories, and she read more than just one book with that very premise at its center, and yet she never, not even for a moment, thought that she would ever experience anything the like. After all, she never had a choice in matters of love. Her lover had been decided long before she was born, and growing up her family made sure that she was kept far away from any male devils. Only direct relatives and her fiancé were allowed to approach her without a chaperone present to ensure her purity, which in hindsight was quite funny to her. Her cousin Saraerg was not allowed to approach her without her chaperone being there, even though everyone knew that Saraerg would never touch her in any sexual way. Yet Riser Phoenix, the one devil that wanted nothing more than to fuck her, was allowed to casually approach her. Was it just her, or was there truly something wrong with that way of handling things? But no, she shouldn't blame her family for that, not when she knew that her chaperone, that nasty woman, accepted bribes for a variety of things. Rias had witnessed Riser bribe her chaperone with her very own eyes, and ever since that day Riser was never bothered by that nasty bitch again. Rias briefly entertained the thought of telling her father about the bribes, but decided against it, for her chaperone was also her father's mistress, one of his favorites at that. Rias was quite sure that if she confronted her father and mother and told them all about it, they would believe her. Maybe, but that meant that she had to confront her parents again man Rias didn't know if she could do that, she didn't know if she could manage to sit through another evening of false smiles, pitying looks, and empty presents. And all she ever wanted was to be able to choose. Rias finished the paper she worked on so far and quickly replaced it with a new one. Looking to the side she had to withhold a groan as she saw a small steeple of papers that she had yet to do. One paper at a time Rias, one paper at a time. And so, she went back to work, writing away until her wrists started to cramp up, and then she wrote some more. And as she was working her mind once more wandered back to a certain blonde and blue-eyed new student. I wonder how Naruto-kun is doing right now. I hope that he didn't do anything to make Soi-sensei angry, Rias thought, while continuing to do her daily work routine. That was until the door to the orc began to open and she rose her head to look at the person that entered the room. Rias smiled fondly and put her pen down to greet the person. Kaneko-chan, don't you have PE now? I got excused from class, the petite girl said in a monotonous drawl. Rias frowned at the girl and stood up before walking up to the smaller first-year student. She gently placed her hands onto the girl's shoulders and gave her a kind smile. What's wrong, Kaneko-chan? Rias asked while softly rubbing her rook's shoulders. It's not like you to shy away from gym class. The rook looked away with a frown marring her pretty features. The girls of my class went swimming today and I can't. The little girl's despondent tone pulled at Ria's heartstrings and she was quick to pull Kaneko into a warm hug. Sorry Kaneko-chan, Rias cooed while caressing the smaller girl's bright snow-white hair. It's not your fault but you, the girls mumbled into Ria's boobs. But it is, I should've taught you how to swim long ago. Ria's eyes widened when the little girl wrapped her arms around her waist. And you tried to teach me. Kaneko began to purr quietly when Rias found and scratched that special spot hidden beneath her hair. It isn't your fault that I'm scared of water. So stubborn. Rias had a small grin on her face as he held the smaller girl in her arms. She was always rather weak against adorable things, and her little Kaneko had to be the epitome of cuteness right now. Are you hungry right now? Kaneko looked up from in between the valley of Ria's breasts and gave the taller girl a quick nod, a little. The crimson-haired princess nodded and ushered her little rook towards one of the couches, then take a seat and I'll get you a little snack. Kaneko Taoju blinked, you? Yeah, why not? Akeno is out doing something with Tsubaki-chan, so just sit tight while I have a look, maybe I can find something that you'd enjoy. The first year gave a non-committal half shrug before she planted down on the couch, her golden hazel eyes followed her king's form as the older girl walked out of the clubroom and headed for the kitchen of the old school building. Butchu seems different, the lithe girl thought to herself. Kaneko didn't have to wait long before Butchu came back in with a silver held in both hands. The crimson-haired princess of ruin placed the tray down in front of the white-haired girl with a smile on her pretty face. Kaneko looked blankly at the dish before her. Those cookies smelled good, as did the tea, and here she always believed that Akeno and Kiba were the only members of the peerage that could cook. Dear, I hope that it won't be too bad. Did you make this, Butchu? Well, not the cookies, there were still some leftovers from the last time Akeno baked a tray. I just put them in the oven for a few minutes and made a pot of tea, Rias explained with a tilt of her head. Now dig in while I'll finish the rest of my paperwork. Kaneko had to withhold a small smile as she saw Butchu walk back towards her desk with her head lowered and a comedic rain cloud above her head. Hey, maybe Butchu's not that different after all. The girl shook her head and grabbed a steaming cookie from the tray and bit into it. She hummed pleasantly and took a sip of the tea. The rest of the hour passed quickly for both Rias and Kaneko, with the former being consumed by her work and the latter consuming sweets and tea like the little cookie monster she was. After school with Naruto. Naruto yawned tiredly and stretched his hands high above his head as he made his way through the hallways of Kuo High. At the end of the hallway, he went down the spiraling staircase until he reached the bottom floor. With his brain on autopilot, the blonde shinobi moved through the crowd of students without touching one of them. He just wanted to get out of here. The last class was tiring to say the least. The history teacher seemed to know what she was talking about, but did she really have to be that strict? Luckily, he heeded the warning of the cute green-haired girl and avoided getting into any trouble with a woman. Still, how did someone that used corporal punishment in this day and age get a license to work with children? Uzumaki-san. The blonde stopped and turned around to see the girl he talked to during class come running towards him. Oh, it's you, Naruto mumbled after the girl came to stop in front of him panting and out of breath. How can I help you? The girl looked up at Naruto and gave him a timid smile. I just wanted to properly introduce myself. My name is Rina Hayes. The blonde laughed kindly down at the vastly smaller girl. She was cute, he admitted that much. It's nice to meet Rina-chan. Rina's entire face went red and seemingly the entire girl went fidgety, and Naruto could feel it well up within him, that deep urge that only the cutest of girls could evoke within a manly man like him. That primordial urge to reach out and grab the girl in a massive bear hug. But he held strong and withstood. He stayed steadfast and unflinching in the face of cuteness. And thanks again for the warning about the sensei, Tebeo. No problem and Naruto-kun, the girl gave him a blushing smile. Rina was a cute girl, pretty too, but not in a this girl needs to be worshipped at an altar kind of way, no, she had that girl next door kind of beauty, with dull mint green hair, light green eyes, a petite stature with surprisingly big breasts, and rather wide hips for her small frame. And seriously the girl was tiny, with the top of her head barely reaching the bottom of Naruto's chest. Anyways I want to get out of here, so do you maybe want to walk with me? Naruto asked and pointed at the emptying hallway before them. Oh sure. Great. Come on, let's go. Rina gave Naruto a timid smile, and the two of them began their walk down the hallway. Naruto pretended not to notice the glances the green-haired young woman gave him occasionally as they walked. It was nice he supposed to walk side by side with a girl like this, but he didn't know if he was ready to make new friends just yet. He sighed and shoved his hands into the front pockets of his trousers. Is something wrong? Huh? He looked down and to the right to see Rina look at him with a worried and inquisitive look on her pretty face. Oh no, nothing's wrong, just lost in thought I guess. Alright, the girl nodded, and a few moments of awkward silence passed before she once more looked at the far taller man walking next to him. Wanna talk about it? About what? About your thoughts I mean, sometimes talking about things like that helps me clear my head, you know. The girl glanced to the side with a light blush on her cheeks, or was it too personal for to ask? I don't want to intrude. Nah it's alright, Naruto tilted his head and squinted in thought, I guess I just don't know how I'm supposed to act, you know. Do you mean around me or in general? The girl asked with a cute tilt of her head. In general, but I won't mind some advice on the former either, Naruto leered playfully down at the girl. Rina giggled and shook her head, I don't think you need any advice about that, you're doing fine, it's nice to just be able to walk with a boy without having to worry about you trying to do something perverted. He looked down at the girl with an eyebrow cocked, how do you know that I won't give it a try? Oh, I don't, the girl smiled up at the confused blonde, you just don't strike me as the type who would try something untoward, and mom's always told me that I have good instincts. Just make sure that your trusting nature won't come back to haunt you in the future. Rina gulped lightly. Was it just her imagination, or did she hear something dark, bitter, and angry in Naruto's tone just now, and as she allowed herself a glance at his handsome face, she cold soared that his eyes were shadowed and she blinked and shook her head, she was just imagining things. You don't have to worry Naruto-kun, I'm always careful around new people, she gave him a little grin, but back to what you said earlier, why are you worried about how you should act? I mean it's simple isn't it? Just act like yourself. Naruto tilted his head and gave the girl a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. Yeah I guess you're right. If it only would be that simple, he thought bitterly but wisely kept those thoughts from showing on his face. See? Sometimes you just need to talk to someone and everything works out. Rina walked ahead and spun around to face Naruto. Said blonde smiled at the cute girl that was now walking backward while keeping her eyes on him. She was a nice girl and far bubblier than she let on at first glance. The beautiful and busty Akeno Himejima walked down the hallways of Kuo Academy. As she walked, she waved and smiled at all her fans, both boys and girls, alike, putting on the charade of being their perfect and unfailable one-sama, when in truth she was neither of those things. Ah well, appearances must be kept, and so, she played along, doing everything that the masses expected her to do and then some. Akeno just finished her meeting with her fellow queen, Tsubaki Shinra, and was on her way back to the old school building. Thanks for watching.